Voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
More than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed in the sixth day of the ongoing Israeli aggression against the occupied Gaza and West Bank. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has reiterated at the Arab League headquarters in Cairo Algeria's firm condemnation of the criminal aggression against the Palestinian people. And the meeting of the Council of Ministers of the Arab League culminated in the adoption of a resolution on political actions to be taken to end the Israeli aggression against the occupied Palestinian territories. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, at least 1,385 Palestinians were killed and 6,229 others wounded in the ongoing Israeli aggression against the occupied Gaza Strip and West Bank, which entered its sixth day. On the sixth day of the Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people, 1,354 Palestinians or 85 Palestinians were martyred in the Palestinian enclave and 31 others in the occupied West Bank. According to the same source, 60% of the victims of the increasing number of the bombardments on Gaza by the occupying forces were defenseless women and defenseless children. The humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank has worsened due to the continuation of aggression and the total siege imposed by the Zionist entity, endangering the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent people and defenseless people. Saad Bougazi has more in this report.
According to the Palestinian Minister of Health, Mai El-Khala, the stocks of medicines in hospitals still operating in the Gaza Strip are running dangerously low. The same source pointed out that several hospitals have been totally or partially destroyed by the bombardments of the occupying forces. The lack of medicines and food in the districts of the Gaza Strip, as well as the lack of electricity, has forced, according to the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs OCHA, some 264,000 people to move inside the Palestinian enclave. For its part, the NGO Human Rights Watch, while denouncing the collective punishment imposed by the Zionist entity on the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, depriving them of electricity, water, food and fuel, warned of a real humanitarian crisis. In the same connection, the World Food Programme said it was deeply concerned about the difficulties of access to basic foodstuffs, notably in the Gaza Strip, as a result of the ongoing Zionist escalation. Brazil, which currently holds the presidency of the Security Council, has called another meeting of the body for Friday to discuss the disastrous humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, the Brazilian Foreign Ministry announced on Wednesday evening.
Now, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has received a telephone call from his Turkish counterpart, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, during which the two officials discussed bilateral relations, developments in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and the Turkish President's planned visit to Algeria next month. And the President of the Republic has also received a telephone call from the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Olaf Scholz, during which they exchanged views on bilateral relations and ways of strengthening them in a number of areas. The two parties discussed current regional and international issues of interest to both countries, notably the situation in Europe and the developments in the Middle East, in addition to Libya and the Sahel region. Speaking from Cairo on Wednesday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, reiterated Algeria's firm condemnation of the criminal aggression against the Palestinian people and its immeasurable solidarity with the valiant Palestinian people, pointing out that the Arab peoples expect us to adopt a unified position that restores the constance of the Arab nation in terms of support for its central cause. In his address to the emergency Arab ministerial meeting on the situation in occupied Palestine, Ahmed Attaf said that Algeria urges international organizations and bodies to intervene immediately to protect Palestinian civilians who are victims of the barbarity of the Zionist aggression. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Palestine, Riyad al-Maliki, has hailed in Cairo Algeria's position in favor of the Palestinian cause and her support for the state of Palestine on the international scene. Al-Maliki's statement was made during bilateral talks with Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf on the sidelines of his participation in the emergency Arab ministerial meeting to examine ways of stopping the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip. Al-Maliki warned against the seriousness and resurgence of aggression against the people of Gaza, particularly following the announcement by the occupying authorities to cut off electricity, water and fuel supplies, and threats to bomb medical and food aid trucks. Now, the Council of Ministers of the Arab League issued a resolution in Cairo on ways of taking political action to put an end to the Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip and achieve peace and security in the region, with Algeria and other member countries having expressed reserves about certain terms, notably the one placing on an equal footing the inalienable and imprescriptible right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and the practices of the Zionist entity which flout all the charters and resolutions of international legality. The details in this report by my colleague Said Bouazi again.
In the final communique of the extraordinary meeting of the Council of Ministers of the Arab League held Wednesday, the Algerian delegation dissociated itself from anything that places on an equal footing the inalienable and imprescriptible rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination and the establishment of a sovereign state on the 1967 borders, and the practices of the Zionist entity which violate all the charters and resolutions of international legality. The Arab foreign ministers condemned all that the brotherly Palestinian people has suffered and is suffering as aggressions and violations of their rights, calling for the lifting of the siege of the Gaza Strip and the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid, foodstuffs and fuel, and the reversal of the unjust decisions of the Zionist entity to cut off electricity and water supplies to Gaza.
And in press conference devoted to the situation in occupied Gaza, the ambassador and permanent representative of the League of Arab States to the United Nations, Majid Abdelaziz, underlined the three axes of the resolution that came out of the emergency meeting held by the Arab League on Wednesday.
It has 3 preambular and 12 operative paragraphs. The 3 preambular is reaffirming the centrality of the Palestinian question and the need to fulfill all the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, the inalienable legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. Above all is the self-determination and living in peace in its independent, sovereign state on the borders of the 4th of June 1967, with East Jerusalem as its capital. The second one is upholding the commitment to comprehensive, just peace in the Middle East on the basis of the two-state solution as a strategic objective of Arab countries to protect the country and all its peoples and its states and its future from violence, wars, and its destructive impacts. The third one is the reaffirmation on all other resolutions.
And with this, we come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for a special program devoted to the situation in Gaza and in the occupied Palestinian territories as a whole, with my colleague, or prepared and compiled by my colleague, Jamal Slimani. With this, we come to the end of it. We'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. Still with our special coverage on the latest developments in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. A national demonstration in the capital, London, is organized to march in solidarity with Palestine and to demand Israel end its occupation of Palestinian land and apartheid rule over the Palestinian people. The demonstration is organized by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, which is the largest UK civil society organization dedicated to securing Palestinian human rights, established in 1982. Joining us today from London, the chair of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, an engineering professor based at the University of Birmingham, Mr. Kamil Hawash. Mr. Hawash, welcome on Radio Algeria International.
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me.
Before starting, could you just give us details about the Palestine Solidarity Campaign?
Yes, the campaign was established in 1982, which people remember was when Israel invaded Lebanon, and a group got together and formed it. There were only a handful, but it's now grown to be the largest solidarity group in Europe, certainly in the UK. We campaign particularly, one of our main points is to campaign for the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. We raise their rights here with government, with opposition groups, with all sectors of society, and we observe and push for support for the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, which is a peaceful movement to secure Palestinian rights through Israel finally ending its aggressive and oppressional behavior against them.
Mm-hmm. London is witnessing the organization of a demonstration in support with the Palestinian people following the severe escalation of violence since October 7th. Tell us more.
There was already we had a demonstration in London on Monday night, last Monday, in which people were able to stand outside the Israeli embassy and direct their anger at what Israel was doing to the Palestinian people in Gaza, who are literally in an open air prison. We had thousands get onto the streets who were supporting the Palestinian people, which is an important emphasis. It's not supporting a grouping or anyone who, particularly in Palestine, it is to support the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza, where 2.3 million people have been under siege, and now Israel has even gone as far as banning water, electricity and food from going in, which is another war crime that Israel is committing. So we will be marching from the BBC building in London to a point where we will have speeches from different groupings, trade unions, some members of Parliament, and as I say, it is very much raising the voice for the Palestinian people and what they are being subjected to at the moment by Israel, which is completely inhumane and unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Hawash, as you mentioned earlier, over 2 million, of whom 50% are children, are under siege in the Gaza Strip. Now the occupying Israeli authorities have declared a complete blockade of the Gaza Strip as a collective punishment, which is a war crime under international law. Could you elaborate, please?
Yes. I mean, let's draw a similarity. If Russia did this against the Ukrainian people in a particular city or region, the Western world would be up in arms, saying this is illegal and we must go and support them. What we find is when it comes to the Palestinian people, the duplicity of behavior, the double standard is evident. The latest was this afternoon, hearing the leader of the Labour Party, which is the opposition party, who is likely to become the next prime minister, who is a human rights international lawyer, actually say that Israel has a right to self-defense, and when asked whether it was okay for them to cut off water and electricity supplies and so on, he actually said yes, which is completely inhuman, and it's completely wrong coming from an international law specialist, if you like. Yeah. But also the UK government has been completely quiet. What they have said is simply Israel has the right to self-defense, and that is clearly at the expense of the Palestinian people in Gaza, who've endured 16 years of a blockade anyway, which is an illegal blockade, but now the people will be starved and they will have no water, and they've cut off the electricity. It's a completely inhumane situation.
How long do you think the population in the Gaza Strip will survive with no electricity, no food, no fuel, and no water?
Well, I mean, the Palestinians are a resilient people, but we have a reality here that none of us. First of all, water is in short supply. I heard today a person say in Gaza, or I read about it, that although they have water storage at sort of ground level, which is raised to the third floor to bring water in, the water itself is seawater. So there'll be no water for them to consume. In terms of electricity, yes, the Palestinians in Gaza have lived on very short supplies of 2-3 hours at a time in the past, but now Israel is saying it has already stopped it, or will not let fuel in to even power the electricity station. But then there's also food. It's not just about the electricity and water. And it was completely bizarre for the Israeli Prime Minister to tell the people of Gaza to leave their homes to a safer place, when in fact Gaza is under siege and they can't go anywhere. It's the most densely populated place on earth. The only place they could go, which Israel might still facilitate, is in the direction of Egypt, so that they can create another Nakba with Palestinians being pushed out from their homeland. They're very resilient, and I don't think they will agree to that. But at the end of the day, if they keep bombing the Gaza Strip with what seem to be bombs that create huge fires and are flattening, literally building after building after building, human beings have the inclination then to think about safety for them and their children, and maybe move as far away from trouble as they can. But in Gaza, every inch is targeted by this barbaric Israeli government.
So we can say that the humanitarian situation is disastrous, and for this, Egypt and the UN intend to open a humanitarian corridor. Is it achievable, and will this meet the increasing number of, or the demands of the increasing number of displaced people?
Well, apparently, even when Egypt tried to send some trucks yesterday, Israel threatened to bomb them to allow a humanitarian corridor. Well, that assumes they see the Palestinians in Gaza as human beings. The Israeli defense minister called the Palestinians animals. I mean, this is the deranged thinking that is happening this is the leadership of Israel, an apartheid state, an occupying state, and a state that doesn't know what peace means. What it knows is war and destruction, and inflicting the severest punishment on a people. Whatever happened on the 7th of October, the 2.3 million people, mostly overwhelmingly civilian, had nothing to do with that, and they should not be collectively punished in the way that Israel does. It is unfortunate that it has a complete carte blanche to do what it wants, to hit Gaza with the fiercest weapons it has, which are supplied mainly by the United States, using American taxpayer money, and it is shameful that happens. And they've already sent more ammunition that is will cause more severe injuries on the Palestinian people. So to talk about opening a humanitarian corridor, I think they would wait to see Palestinians really suffer, people die. As it stands at the moment, there are people under the rubble who are alive but can't be brought out, who will die. As it appears, Israel has turned Gaza, the open-air prison, is moving towards turning it into an open-air morgue.
Clearly, as you said, international law enshrines the right of people to resist oppression and military occupation. Do you consider the operation of Hamas the result of Israel's ongoing military occupation?
All I'm focusing on today is how we can mobilize to stop Israel committing a crime against humanity. Some people feel that it should even be investigated for what it is has announced it will be doing for further crimes. One of the unfortunate issues is that what is called the international community, which created the International Criminal Court, to which it should be sending war criminals, basically says, as our former Prime Minister Boris Johnson here in the UK last year said, the International Criminal Court is great, but it shouldn't have anything to do with Israel-Palestine, because Israel is not a member and Palestine isn't a state. but the Palestinians are human beings. And if he thinks he should give more rights to the Israeli Jewish people and above the Palestinians, that is sheer racism, and it is abhorrent.
Let's recall that from the beginning of 2023 up to October 6th, the day before the offensive from Gaza began, the occupying Israeli forces had killed 240 Palestinians, including 45 children. Israel is now carrying air raids against innocent civilians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu intends to turn Gaza, as he said, into a deserted island, knowing that the people of Gaza are not allowed to leave the Strip. Are we witnessing an ethnic cleansing or genocide?
Well, that seems to be the way that we are heading. Even before the 7th of October, people, particularly in what is called Area C under the Oslo Accord, the Jordan Valley, have been pushed out by settlers from their villages, from their homes, in what is ethnic cleansing. And of course, Israel was built on ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians into neighboring countries. So it is not something that Israeli leaders fear they will be accountable for, and so they think they can carry on and do that. But again, the situation didn't start on the 7th of October. If we look at what's been happening since this new extremist Israeli government that has fascist ministers holding key positions in it, the raids on Jenin, on Nablus, there was a siege on Nablus some months ago, have continued. Israel's shoot-to-kill policy is evident by the numbers that you just cited, which included 47 children, by the way, and they were truthfully killed, unlike the propaganda that's being pushed out at the moment, since it's the IDF has not confirmed that babies were targeted. They were truly killed by Israel, including two-year-old Mohammed Tamimi from Nabi Saleh. So the crimes continue, and Israel feels complete impunity to carry on doing what it does, including the night before the 7th in the small town of Hawara. The settlers rampaged, burnt houses, cars, and also a settler with his private gun or pistol killed a Palestinian man. This has got to stop. But what worries me is the Palestinians have no protection at all and are sitting ducks, whether it's in the West Bank or in Gaza.
Mr. Hawash, Professor Hawash, the Israeli occupying military forces are at the doors of the Gaza Strip. Will there a possible ground offensive on Gaza in the coming days, and what are their limits?
As you know, the Israelis are building up forces around the Gaza Strip, the tiny Gaza Strip, and they are threatening to conduct a ground war. Their premise is the only way for what happened in terms of the 7th of October and other incidents, the only way to stop that is to completely, get rid of Hamas. However, to do that, if they think a ground war will do that, they step back in the past because they feared what would happen to their soldiers, and I think they will think that again. However, when you see the Americans supplying them with the most sophisticated and deadly weapons possible, they could embark on killings of the civilian population first, and then, if you like, pave the way for an invasion. I obviously hope for the Palestinian people's sake that doesn't happen, because at the end of the day, enough people have lost their lives, both on the Israeli side and on the Palestinian side in the last few days, and I don't wish to see anyone lose their life or be injured in this injustice, which is what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians since its creation.
Professor Hawash, you posted on Twitter about a video you have seen about a Palestinian man who was attacked and run over repeatedly by a settler's car. Do you think that Palestinians need protection now?
If I understood your question, it's whether Palestinians need protection. Absolutely. The Palestinians are human beings. Why is it that their well-being, their safety, their security is not considered at all by the international community, whereas the situation is different when it comes to the Israeli people or when it comes to the Ukrainians. You know, the West is doing so much to try and help the Ukrainian people, but it not only leaves the Palestinians on their own. What we've heard over the last few days from the leader of the United States, Biden, and certainly here in the UK, absolutely abhorrent in terms of not even mentioning the Palestinians as if they don't exist. I would remind people that half the population between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea is Palestinian, and the other half is Jewish. And therefore, you cannot ignore that at all. But what about applying international law equally?